friends on the dais and friends on the audience, and the topic which they said I must address is about the issues which are plaguing the investments onto the renewable energy sector, dividing it into three compartments of governance, technology, finance angles. I will largely limit to renewable energy, particularly solar energy. This coming August 24th is my 35th year in the solar business. I started in '84, I never worked. My school project was solar. My engineering in PhD was on solar. My MTech at IIT was on solar here. I came out and became a first generation entrepreneur in solar. I have traveled in this path from the stage where there was not a policy, there was not a product, there was not a need. And today, the most talked about sunrise industry, so-called, is the solar industry. Last 4 to 5 years has been a revolution happening. Actually, I divide it into, from 2000 to 2010, it was an era of wind energy. From 2010 onwards, it became the capitalization of solar energy. Unfortunately, we did not learn the mistakes which we had in the wind energy, and we continue to have the problems connected with both wind and solar even today. What is the issue? The issue is, at least in wind, it was only a megawatt scale projects, whereas in solar, it can range from wattage to megawatt scale projects. This country took almost 20 years, we talked only in wattage usages. It took about 5 years for us to migrate into kilowatt usages, 1 kilowatt, 5 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt usages. It took us about 3 years to migrate from kilowatt to talk in terms of megawatt. But it took us only 1 year to talk from megawatt to gigawatt. We suddenly raised too fast. We suddenly talked as if, every alternate street had a solar company or a dealer of solar. For those who need to have some statistics being shared, the present government, when it took over in 2014, Mr. Piyush Goyal came out with initially a policy of creating 20 gigawatt by 2018. That was the first policy which was announced in 2015. As we traveled along, the policy got revised from 20 gigawatt into 100 gigawatt by 2022 in solar. 100 gigawatt was split into two angles, 60 gigawatt in land-mounted solar projects and 40 gigawatt into roof-mounted solar projects. 60 gigawatt, we are talking 60,000 megawatt with about 5 acres of land. We are talking about 3 lakhs acres of land in this country being allocated for solar. With an investment of about 4 crores per megawatt, we are talking about 2.4 lakhs crores of investment coming into the sector. We have traveled. We are almost about 14 gigawatt currently. Within 14 itself, we have seen 80% of our land is with Chinese modules. Evacuation has become the biggest challenges. Infrastructure was not ready by then. So we put the vehicle in the front without the wheels in it. So we had investments coming in. This sector in the last 7 years has witnessed many top-line players going bankrupt. I can refer people like Sun Edison, who came from US, who came with large-scale deployment of this market potential, went bankrupt. Many I can cite. The prices of solar fell from close to about 7 rupees 50 paisa to 2 rupees 35 paisa. Has this revolution of price reduction happened with technology? Actually not. The same module efficiency of 18 to 20% even today remains the same. So there is no technology breakthrough. Then what was the breakthrough in bringing down the price? Obviously the volume, the scale of deployment of the solar. Second was financial engineering took over. The third was certain level of commitments from the TANGEDCOs or JETCOs who are buying the power that they will pay the money within 30 days or are backed up with bank guarantees. But as we have now traveled, things are becoming extremely difficult for us to play the game. The reference point is keep changing. I'm not too sure how many of you are aware. The government came with a policy about a month and a half back saying that they came out with a big policy of putting solar for farmers in a big way. Farmers Empowerment Program. They came out fixing about 13 gigawatt of deployment into the farmer sector. And they had put one clause saying all the cells, solar cells for this project must be manufactured only in India. But the problem is they want to implement this within the next 2 years. But currently, the manufacturers of solar cells in India is not crossing more than 2.5 gigawatt. So on one end, you have an objective. On the other end, you have restrictions yourself. It is like wanting to fly with a big stone tied to your legs. And you don't even realize there is a stone tied to your legs. But you keep talking about how high you are flying. It's all imaginative flying. Today we are facing the biggest challenges of rooftop systems. We have a challenge in terms of net metering process. Originally, the net meter process, when it was introduced about 3 years back, was your house meter runs on one direction when you draw the power out. It will run on the opposite direction when you give the power back to the grid. The difference in the number of units is what you are being charged. That was the practice. From this May onwards, in a state of Tamil Nadu, the net metering policy has been modified now. How it is modified? Earlier it was connected with number of units differences. Now it is the price differences. The power which you draw from the grid is priced at a particular value decided by the TANGEDCO. The power which you export to the grid is also priced by the TANGEDCO. And the price of the purchase has been taken as 2 rupees 15 paisa. I don't know where they got the calculations wrong, but the power in which it is priced is at 2 rupees 15 paisa. Now, in a kilowatt scale projects, assuming without battery, if I invest on a solar plant in my house, it will cost me, cost of generating solar power is about 5 rupees 50 paisa. Now, how do I generate at 5 rupees 50 paisa and give it to the government at 2 rupees 15 paisa? It's illogical. You try and convince somebody that it's not logical, but it is the law. So at every point of a time, unfortunately or fortunately, this country is blessed with the number of days of sunshine. This country is blessed with power cuts. This country is blessed with shortages of power. And this country can easily migrate into the renewable energy into a big level. Even today, I read in the paper, yesterday I read in the paper, government giving indirect directions to not to buy the wind energy. This is how it was read 20 years back. When I was meeting NEP CMD, he will come and tell me, hey Raghu, you know, the biggest problem is they don't want to buy the power from wind. Then they will all go, association will go, meet the minister will make an announcement that we will buy from tomorrow X amount of megawatt, and then it will go on for a while. Then from that, they will move to the next problem, which is we are not getting payment from the TANGEDCO. Again, that will spiral for about 6 months of not getting the payment. They will again go back to the minister. Then some releases will come. This is cycle. I have not seen it changed even after 20 years. It is sad that the sector is moving in this direction. Now let's come to the finance. Where does these investments come from? Today, most of the challenges, people are not able to raise the investment because even for a good project today, raising finance has become a question mark. Even if you have a saleable project, bankable project, today money is not available that easily for people to avail it. I'm sure Franco knows it better. And where you have a project which is more on paper, I'm eagerly awaiting to hear from Bhargavi when she presents a megawatt scale projects application. How many of you know the largest solar power project in the world was at Tamil Nadu, 650 megawatt by Adani's? And how many of you also know within 1 year they went into the High Court saying the government is not buying power from them? Even today. 650 megawatt, which is at an outlay of about 3,700 crore, which was established in a place in Karur, Ramnath district. The biggest challenge for them, Adani's, not anybody else. If Adani's have this as a problem of not making the TANGEDCO buy their power, where are others? Today, the biggest challenge what the solar industry is facing is raising the finance. Slowly, they are moving towards raising the finance from the market. I'm sure most of you would have seen a few days back, the first issue in the solar came. Wilson. They came out with the public issue. They just scrapped through. It was oversubscribed by 1.25%. About 5 years back, if you say solar, people will say it's a sunrise industry. Today, we have more products in the market which are not generating power. That is the truth now. The power generation in some of the solar projects have drastically come down after 3 years. Reason is reverse bidding. The reverse bidding is, I have to quote 2.5 to back this 300 megawatt order or 5 gigawatt orders. So I work backwards. If I want to give it at 2 rupees 50 paisa, then how many units I should generate? Then if I generate monthly cash flow of this much, then what should be my project cost? So 2 crores per megawatt, if I have as a plant cost, I can offer it at 2 rupees 50 paisa. How do I get that 2 crores? We were surprised how to do a project in 2 crores because the module itself was costing about 32 rupees at that time. 32 rupees is per megawatt is 3.2 crores. Whereas people were quoting with an assumption of 2 crores per megawatt. Then we realized they were buying modules on a weight basis. There were lots and lots of modules which were stagnated at China because of the anti-dumping duty which was brought in by the US. So our guys went there, they weighed a container and bought the modules, not by wattage. They simply filled up the land with the modules, they showed, and this is how the finance came. Next question comes, fine, is this situation changeable? Do we see a light at the end of the tunnel? Are we in the right direction? Well, we always give the credit to the learning curves of life. And the learning curves today is do a project which will generate the power, take your project cost in mind, and then fix your saleable cost, not the other way around. The financial engineering should come after technology engineering, not financial engineering first and then technology engineering next. This reversal is happening. So most of the people who have survived the crisis are able to take it onto it. Solar is never considered to be, or to be considered as a centralized power generation. Wind farms are centralized power generation because you can only locate the wind farms in the place where wind is available. Wind is supposed to have been a centralized power, and solar is supposed to have been a decentralized power. When this government came with the first policy itself, I had spent quite considerable time at the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy Sources saying having 60-40 ratio between land mounted and the rooftop is absolutely wrong. It should have been 80 as a decentralized power and 20 as a centralized power. And that 20 should have been mounted at the locations of where the wind farms are available, where the evacuation is already there, assessments are already there, the land banks are already there. So it should have been done that way. First question. Second is, where is the real market for solar? Obviously, I produce the power and I use the power, and if I have anything excess, I give it back and store it and take it back. That's the ideal combinations. The difference between off-grid and on-grid is off-grid has a battery which you can store. On-grid does not have a battery, you cannot store. Forget all this net metering. The net metering ideal policy would have been, it should have been a wheeler and banker. I take from you 10 units and you have a credit of 10 units which you can take it back anytime in the next 1 month, cycle time. That should have been the ideal. And I charge you some percentage of the power which I keep it with me and give it to you back. That should have been the ideal, not in terms of differential units, nor in terms of price differences. Because it's your money, you are putting, and things like that. The technology is actually moving towards a combo of off-grid and on-grid. Take an educational institution. Mr. Franco implemented so much of solar in SBOA schools. A school functions only for about 200 to 220 days. Their solar plant actually works for 340 days. So 120 days, without the net meter, they were actually losing the power or paying for the power. That's not fair. In my house, during daytime, most of the people are not in the house, so I don't use any power. So the power is required for me only when I get back. So I go for a battery backed up system to store my energy, and I use the energy when I come back in the night. Suppose if I am not available in the station, then I give the power also to the grid. So the combo of off-grid and on-grid is actually coming in as an answer now. Actually speaking, the rooftop-mounted decentralized solar is a real revolution which this country will witness, which is not connected with the government policy, which is not connected with the government evacuation system, which is not connected with the reverse pricing policies. It should be decentralized. It should be left to the buyer to choose whom he wants to buy from. That is where the market is moving towards. That's my opinion on this, sir. As far as your questions are. All of us know about the grid stability. The fluctuation of the voltages and the fluctuation of the frequencies, everything was known. Unfortunately, most of the people who were in the wind were the ones who entered into the solar also. Because when their market was stepping down, they had the people who could do the project management, who could do the evacuation. They had the link with the power PPA signing access or the evacuation access or the follow-up of the money access. So they had the bandwidth of their connecting platforms. So they came into this. But all of us are aware of this. All of us are aware. That is why I said this off-grid, on-grid solution will take over decentralized manner. Decentralized is the only answer.